Spring Warrior, have you ever wondered how to conquer diabetes and reclaim your health or that of a loved one? Are you confused about whether it's okay to indulge in fruits or wary of carbs? Well, today, Dr. Harrington is going to unravel the secrets of combating diabetes through the incredible power of a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. Dr. Um, Dr. Harrington is going to be telling us a lot of information about diabetes, and he's also got a presentation, going to take your questions. But right now, let's start off with our true or false game.
It's time for True or False on Be Green with Amy Live. Answer true or false to Amy's questions in the comments below, and Amy will ask our guest for the expert answer.
True or false, eating fruit raises blood glucose levels. That's a tricky one. Tell us what you think, Green Warriors. And Dr. Harrington, what's the answer?
Well, the answer is fruit does raise blood glucose levels, and we have to be able to tolerate glucose. We want to have good glucose, good insulin sensitivity, and the ability for our body to manage our glucose. This is the goal, and we do this by eating low fat, and our body can manage the sugar spike related to blood eating fruit. And fruit is very healthy, and it is not to be discouraged.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Okay, Green Warriors, let's think about this one now. True or false, all carbohydrates, including those from rice and potatoes, are to be avoided by individuals with diabetes. Okay, Dr. Harrington?
Well, we'll really spend a lot of time talking about this in my presentation, but ideally, carbs that are a little bit lower on the glycemic index scale, slow carbs are healthier because it's a little bit easier for your body to manage. And especially you want to avoid eating them with a bunch of fat because your body will have an easier time dealing with them. And so we're going to go all into this. So this is... mostly you should not be focused on so much on the type of whole carb, but that in making sure that you keep your fat down lower. It makes it easier for your body to manage.
And I'm glad that you said slow carb, because so many people are so confused about carbs, and we're going to clear that up too. But I love how you recognize that there's differences in carbs and that you talked about it being slow carbs, because that's really important to know. We'll learn more coming up. Okay, the next one, true or false, consuming high fiber foods can help stabilize blood sugar levels. Okay, Dr. Harrington?
Oh my gosh, this is absolutely true. And this is almost probably some of the secret sauce of the vegan diet, because it's so high in fiber that you get this basically magical additional decrease of your glucose. And it's been proven even with fiber supplements and this kind of thing. And I've got some graphs on that.
Excellent. We're going to dive deeper into that a little bit later. True or false, plant-based diets are typically low in fat, which can benefit individuals with diabetes. Okay, Dr. Harrington.
That is true. Absolutely true. That's the goal. We want to be relatively low in fat, because weight can be an issue. If you're eating whole food plant-based, if you're not super heavy on nuts and super heavy on avocado and things like that, you're generally in a healthy fat range.
Okay, excellent. True or false, regular exercise is not essential for managing diabetes if you follow a plant-based diet. Okay, Dr.
Well, this is true with a caveat. True in that the most powerful thing that you can do for your body composition and your health in general is what we put in our mouth. It's the food, like Dr. McDougall. It's the food, icing on the cake. If you exercise, you're going to improve your glucose management. Is definitely. Diet is king and exercise is queen.
I'm glad you said that, because I think especially for people who have diabetes, exercise can be a challenge because oftentimes they're battling how they're feeling and their glucose levels and whether or not they're crashing. And so it can be really difficult for some people who are just starting out. So that's good to know. True or false? All fruits have the same impact on blood sugar levels. Okay.
This is actually false. There are differences in glycemic index of fruit, and there are some superstar fruit, basically the berry group, that especially some of the berries have these amylase inhibitors, which actually slow down the conversion or the of starches to sugars, so they can actually assist in slowing down the absorption of sugar from your other more complex carbs. So berries are the champ. Berries are the champ.
Okay, great. And they acknowledge JJ said, "Oh, I like that diet is king and exercise is queen." I think a lot of people might think that way. True or false, consuming processed plant-based foods like vegan desserts and snacks is just as harmful as consuming animal products for individuals with diabetes. Dr. Harrington?
Yeah, this is unfortunately true. I don't know about just as harmful. When there was actually recently a study about various fake meats and cheeses, and they were saying, oh, they're more harmful. And I don't know. I have to look at that study because I assume that they would be slightly less harmful, less insulin-like growth factor production, which is cancer promoting. But the goal is to you should treat these vegan treats as treats. You shouldn't treat them as they shouldn't be called a halo food. Sometimes you'll look at some foods and say, "Oh, it's vegan and it's got a little halo on it," but that's not true. We know if it's high fat, it's probably you should try to limit it.
The processed food
Yeah.
producers probably were thinking about putting halos on their packages.
Right.
But they said, we don't have to.
Right.
We'll just say vegan, and people will think, just like you said,
Yeah.
the halo effect. Or false, the ideal range for fasting blood glucose is between 70 and 99. Okay, that's
This is
one that,
true.
yeah. So it's true. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I think I think that was the end of our true or false questions. And Green Warriors, as I said, if you have a question for Dr. Harrington, please type it in the chat, and I'm going to be asking him your questions a little bit later. And Green Warriors, do you know
Okay.
somebody that has diabetes? Type that in the chat.
This is such a big topic, and you can get down into various rabbit holes about diabetes. But first off, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Dr. Scott Harrington. I got a little bit in the intro. Thank you, Amy. That was an amazing intro. I'm a family doctor and lifestyle medicine board certified doctor, and I have online capability to see you through telemedicine on many U.S. states. Here's my current nationwide state license list. And so it's 16 states right now. And so if you're in one of these states and you need help or you feel like you're not being listened to by your regular primary care doctor, you can see me online. I accept insurance, Aetna, Cigna, TRICARE, Medicare. And let's get into it. So that was about me, but we're going to talk about diabetes today. Do you happen to be in your normal monitoring every year? Do you notice that your hemoglobin A1C, one of the sugar markers, is going up slowly? Are you vegan already, but you have type 2 diabetes and you're struggling? This lecture will also talk a little bit about glucometers, and also if there's questions about this medicine, this type of medicine, GLP-1 agonists, which is the famous Ozempic and Mounjaro, though everyone seems to be having questions about these lately. Now, I am a lifestyle medicine doctor, and the goal is to avoid medicines, but there comes a time and place where treatment is reasonable, and so if you have questions about that, I can help answer them. So my story, I went vegan in 2012 after watching Forks Over Knives. I couldn't lose weight trying to portion control, and I needed to lose about 15, 20 pounds. And so I was struggling, and but after I watched Forks Over Knives, I was very impressed, and I decided to go 100% vegan. And I went too far, though. I was only eating fruit and vegetables because I still sort of had this fear about carbohydrates. And I was going this way for a little while, a couple of weeks, and then I was struggling. I was feeling a little bit hungry. The food was not super satisfying, but even if I was eating a lot of food, so I feel like I was doing it wrong. And so, but that's when I remembered basically about Dr. McDougall and, starch solution, and basically centering my meals around carbohydrates. And once I sort of switched my mindset to center all my meals around a carb, it was more satisfying. And I still was able to lose weight, uh, even centering all my meals around carbs. So normally, when I was not plant based, someone would say, "Well, what are you eating for dinner?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm having chicken." And then what I imagined in my mind was a little like grilled chicken breast and some broccoli and some rice on the side. And so people sort of imagine their meals around the main course. And at that time, it was animal products. But when you switch to vegan diet, you imagine the main course as maybe some beans or some sort of whole grain as your main meal, with veggies and fruit for dessert. Veggies on the side, fruit for dessert. So once I did that, it changed everything, and I had this feeling of freedom and satisfaction, and I still was able to lose weight down to my 18-year-old weight. So, long story, but I basically became friends with carbs. And so that's why. But this talk is about type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes can be curable. If your pancreas isn't totally worn out and can still produce insulin, which for most type 2 diabetics, it still can, then you can improve your metabolism by going on a plant-based diet, eating whole food. You can eat very low fat, help get the fat out of the cells to make your cells more insulin sensitive and less insulin resistant. You can lose weight, and there's some other tools, basically avoiding food late at night, which keeps your blood sugar up way long at night. And you can avoid snacking during the day so that you can get back down to baseline blood sugars during the day. There's another thing called sequencing where you eat your veggies first and it lowers your overall blood sugar spikes. And then another kind of tool or trick is to take an enjoyable walk basically after eating. And this is another way to blunt the blood sugar spikes. But this is a bottom line up front for various tips for diabetes. And I know these are not rocket science, but we're going to go into each one of these things and go from there. You can't have a diabetes talk without going through some of the metabolism regarding diabetes. And it's at first it was a little confusing for me to understanding type 1 versus type 2. But you have your pancreas and then you have the cell. We'll say, in the end, this is probably a muscle cell we'll be talking about. But on the cell, you have the place where the insulin attaches, the insulin receptor, and we have the glucose transporter. That is where the blood sugar enters the cell. Because the cell's covered by a membrane, it can't get in unless you have insulin to help open up the glucose transporter. We get insulin from the pancreas, and as blood glucose is around, you'll release insulin. And you'll have, insulin will attach to the insulin receptor, and it will open up the glucose transporter for sugar to go into the cell. So first we have to talk about type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is the pancreas is not able to produce insulin anymore. You just don't have insulin. So your glucose builds up. You're not getting it into the glucose transporter because you don't get the signal, the key to open the door, basically. That's type 1. Type 2 is insulin resistance. And for the longest time, I thought insulin resistance was just because people who maybe ate a lot of sugar, sweets, had a lot of insulin around, and you became resistant to it. just like you become insulin resistant to a drug or something if you take it all the time. That's what we used to think. But they've proven with these magnetic resonance scanning down very small level, they could basically see that intramyocellular fat, fat that's inside the muscle cell, basically messes up the signaling that occurs after insulin attaches to the receptor. So you notice that the insulin receptor and the glucose transporter are kind of separated. Well, there's mechanisms that happen inside the cell that signal the glucose transporter to open. So the intracellular fat causes this problem to be blocked. It causes this mechanism to be blocked. So fat is at the root cause of type 2 diabetes, and even down onto a cellular level. And fat within the meal, a meal, can also cause problems of blood sugar and insulin resistance. So this is a picture of, or a diagram of, blood sugar that's being monitored basically continuously. And what you'll see down in the blue is the subject is without diabetes. They eat a meal and their blood sugar goes up. Maybe they have a blood sugar excursion. It might rise 30 to 40 points, and then it comes back down. And by the 2-hour mark, it's back down to the baseline. Now, with type 2 diabetes, it goes up, but it keeps going up. So it goes up higher, and it stays up higher for longer. That's because it's a lot more inefficient. Your body's ability to manage the blood sugar is a lot more inefficient because of insulin resistance. Okay, so I had heard about a tool where people could eat very low glycemic index veggies, eat their veggies first. And in this one, I believe it was broccoli and tomatoes. And in this case, the green line is they ate some, the green and the red lines here are when they had their servings of broccoli and tomatoes 15 minutes before their regular meal that included more grains like rice and this kind of thing. And compared to the people who ate their carbs first, the blood sugar excursion was higher. Now, this is in millimoles per liter. This is in other countries in the United States. We have different units. But basically, you can see that it was almost twice as high. So if you kind of eat your salad first, basically, you could slow down the sugar spike that you're going to get from a regular meal. So this is actually proven with science, and it's called sequencing. Eat your salad first, eat a big salad first, give it 10 15 minutes and eat the rest of your meal, and you'll have a lower blood sugar spike. Okay, so you heard me in the true and false questions talk about glycemic index. Glycemic index is the rate at which the blood sugar shoots up after you take a meal. Now, this is compared. A glycemic index of 100 is just if you ate like table sugar. That would be quickly absorbed and your blood sugar would go up. I call this a metabolic emergency, right? If the blood sugar is spiking, the body tries to keep homeostasis, where everything is in line. Your pH is in line. Your temperature is perfect. The electrolytes in your blood are perfect. Well, as the blood sugar is rising, this is a metabolic emergency. The body has to do something about it to normalize it. And so it causes a lot of insulin release. And in the high glycemic foods, the insulin release will be too high, and it will shoot your blood sugar a little bit lower. So this is the red line. You see it going under the baseline. This is the overcorrection. So I call this high glycemics cause a metabolic emergency. Now, if you imagine the analogy as a restaurant, and they have a lot of kids video games with this now, this concept. In the kids video games, you're serving people as they come in, and if the people who come into the restaurant are coming in slowly, you can manage it. You can give them the meal, and everything is very copacetic. But if a bus pulls up outside the restaurant and they all come in at the same time, then you run into a lot of inefficiencies. And it's kind of like an emergency. And this is kind of the same an analogy with your body. You want to make it so that your body has an easy time. You don't want to be throwing curveballs at your body. So not all carbohydrates are created equally. Basically, when you stick to the whole food diet, a whole food concept, the food is going to be packaged in a bunch of fibrous husk that's going to make the blood sugar spike more slowly. So here's an example of variety of glycemic index. So glucose is at the top, just pure sugar. Cornflakes, they remove the husk, they grind it up, they heat it, and then they dry it out. And the particle size of the carbohydrate is very small. And even though it's complex carbs, it gets changed into sugar really quickly. So we go all the way down. There's even things like sweet potatoes there. Now, if you eat a potato, try to eat it with the potato skins. That can slow things down a little bit, a little higher fiber. Then you'll see lentils. Lentils are really good. They have a kind of the bean exterior to the center carb is a lot smaller than some of the larger beans like navy beans and even black beans. Raw carrot and broccoli, it just gets really small when you get down into the non-starchy vegetables. So what are the best foods for diabetics? The best foods for diabetics are beans and greens. What's your green routine? You need to be shoving these greens in your body every day. Your body's gonna thank you for it because they're so high in nutrients and they're so low in calories and they're low in fat, and it keeps your blood sugar really even. And beans, oh my gosh, beans. People say, oh no, beans, they make me full, they make me have gas, and they make, that's actually their superpower. That's what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to be very filling and hard to digest. And by doing that, it makes it, it adds a significant fullness to your body and a satisfaction. So here's some examples. Green leafy vegetables, glycemic index from 1 to 15. It's almost like you're not eating anything in terms of the sugar spike you'll get. And then the non-starchy vegetables, like high water content. High water content concept is like how soup is like a diet food. If you have a non-fatty and non-creamy soup, most of the calories are from water, or most of the bulk of the soup is from water, which is a 0-calorie thing. And so non-starchy vegetables that have a high water content have a really low glycemic index in general. More on the glycemic index. We've got sort of low, medium, and high. I find this kind of difficult to remember the numbers, but you kind of get the idea that the more concentrated something is with starch, so like even things like butternut squash. Butternut squash is in like the 70s or something. And things that are instant oatmeal. So instant oatmeal is 80. Things like regular oatmeal might be more like 65. Say rolled oats is 60, but you could do oat groats, which I think are like 55 or 45. So the more whole you eat a food, the better it's going to be. Okay, one of the last concepts about this glycemic index business is the idea of glycemic load. And what this gets around is the fruit question. The fruit question, because people know that there's sugar in fruit. And they say, oh my gosh, that's going to really spike my blood sugar. But the overall concept is look at, well, how much actual carbs are you eating with the fruit? And in general, it's pretty low. The grams of carbs in a serving of fruit tends to be pretty low. So here you compare a candy bar which has 59 grams of carbs, versus the slices of watermelon, which has 8 grams of carbs. And glycemic load, you multiply the glycemic index, which is the speed of the sugar absorption, with the grams of carbs, and you get the glycemic load. And so the higher the glycemic load, the higher your blood sugar is going to go. Okay, naked carbs. I didn't have a good, I wanted to make a good slide for this, but you want to eat your food whole, basically. You want your carbs to be, you don't want your carbs to be naked. You want them to be in their shell, their fibrous husk. Okay, so check this out. This here is a fiber supplement. You had people put on diet and counseling. So this is the left side of the graph. To lose weight. And they were following their glucose, actually, in this study. And then after week 6, they have people continue the normal diet, counseling, treatment. And then on the study group, they gave them psyllium husk supplements before their meals, a 15-gram supplement of psyllium, or like a tablespoon of psyllium. And in this study, they showed a dramatic decrease in the fasting glucose over time of giving people additional psyllium husk. So what we believe is happening here is it's slowing down the blood sugar absorption, but also psyllium husk has a lot of soluble fiber. Soluble fiber resists digestion in the intestines, where most nutrients is absorbed, and it gets down into the colon to be changed by the bacteria into short-chain fatty acids, which are helpful for anti-inflammatory effects. And in this case, it looks like they may have actually blood sugar lowering effects as well. So this has been proven. Don't take any other fiber supplement. If you're going to do any fiber supplement, use psyllium husk, because it's the most studied, it's the most effective. There are other various gummies and things like this, and none of them are as effective as psyllium husk, which is the active ingredient in Metamucil. But you can get regular psyllium husk and put it into hot or cold liquids. You can pretty much only do 1 tablespoon at a time, because it gels up the liquid so much that it becomes like Jell-O or something. So what's the point of all this? Why are we trying to keep our blood sugar in a reasonable level? Well, I like to use the analogy of, if you imagine sugar, granulated sugar, almost like the little grains of sand on sandpaper. And if you imagine, as an analogy of those granules of sugar in your blood, irritating the lining of your vessels. And so on a microscopic level, this is kind of what's going on. So problems with sugar is problems with every system in your body. Every system that that has blood flow, basically. Your brain, your kidneys, your eyes, your sexual organs, everything. So this is all about quality of life. And it is a big deal. So what this graph is showing is that the higher the hemoglobin A1C, the higher the long-term blood sugar, the higher the mortality ratio, hazard ratio goes up. And so this is kind of the line going across the screen there. So what is hemoglobin A1C? People ask. Hemoglobin A1C is related to the blood cell. Inside the red blood cell, you have hemoglobin, the oxygen-carrying molecule, and it can get sort of rusted or react with glucose, and glucose will attach to the hemoglobin, and the lab can use this to predict how your average blood sugar has been. Because the red blood cell lives 90 to 120 days, you can get a long-term blood sugar estimation. This is really good, because if you check your blood sugar every now and then, it goes up and down, and you might not understand the long-term aspect of your blood sugar. So that's what's hemoglobin A1C. This is how it relates to average blood sugar. So if you're 5.5 hemoglobin A1C, your average blood sugar is 110. If you're 8.5, it's 200. So hemoglobin A1C is not the end all be all. It does have the potential to give you a false positive or false negative. And for the longest time, I kind of didn't even consider this as a problem until I kind of saw it in my patients who had these various illnesses, um, various things that will elevate your hemoglobin A1C. If things that cause lower turnover in the blood, such as really bad iron deficiency anemia, there can be some genetic and racial differences, and there things that cause a higher turnover of your blood, like hemolysis, where the blood is breaking down. It can reduce your hemoglobin A1C and give you a false kind of a false negative. You could have a higher hemoglobin A1C, but if your blood vessels are breaking down early, blood cells, then you will get a false low. Okay, so how do you know whether you're diabetic or not? What's the definition? So if you have a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5 or over, or if you have a fasting of 126 or over, or a random at any time over 200. Now, some people have poor glucose tolerance, where the blood sugar raises up and stays up for longer. If you have the oral glucose tolerance test, is a 75-gram glucose that they give you a drink to, and then they test you 2 hours later. So those are the tests. Anybody who has diabetes or who wants to wear a glucometer, a continuous glucometer, or just wants to know, should get a what they call a point of care glucometer. Point of care is where you prick your finger and you test it out. And the best time to do glucose testing is in the morning when you're fasting. Contour Next has been rated as one of the most accurate brands, and it is reasonably affordable. And so I recommend Contour Next. There's also continuous glucose meters. Now, these are covered by insurance if you have diabetes. If you don't have diabetes, and some people are interested in doing this kind of as like a weight loss tool or just a quantified self, they want to learn how their blood sugar is reacting, you can get one of these glucose meters. There's two brands that are the most popular right now, Freestyle Libre 3 and Dexcom G7. They both come with apps on your phone so you can see what your blood sugar is doing. If it's not covered by insurance, if you don't have diabetes and you have, you're just very curious and you want to see what these devices can do, you can get a GoodRx coupon for the various devices, and your doctor can prescribe you these devices, and you can wear them on your skin. You can swim with them and take a bath and take a shower. They're kind of fun to see how your blood sugar reacts to various foods, to see how your own body reacts. And so you can answer the question yourself about fruit and various foods and see how they react to your body. It's kind of fun. So Dexcom's a little bit more expensive, but you can calibrate it. If you have your own blood sugar monitor, you could take your blood sugar and test to make sure it's accurate. Both of these can have a certain amount of inaccuracy, but the main thing that you get from these devices is the trends of the blood sugar, how fast and how long it stays up. So the cons of this is that it's just going to cause you a bunch of anxiety if you don't have diabetes. And some people are trying to use this. Is very popular now for people who don't have diabetes. Is causing anxiety and getting you freaked out if your blood sugar goes up a little bit, because of the accuracy can be in question. It can cause some unnecessary anxiety, and when you roll over on it at night, it will falsely alarm. It'll give you a false alarm saying you're too low, but it's because the blood and the interstitial fluid gets pushed away from it when you're laying on it, and it can read it falsely low and wake you up at night, and that's not good. The other thing that it can do is it can cause you to be super scared of carbs, where you're avoiding carbs all the time. And I would be scared that this might cause people to venture away from the vegan diet, which is not the intent. The vegan diet is by far the best for diabetes for many reasons. It's expensive, and also it's best to have a point of care finger prick glucometer if you're going to wear one of these. So the pros of this is that seeing how lifestyle factors affect your blood sugar and the trends, and it's a way to kind of gamify your blood sugar. You can learn tips and tricks and see how you react as an individual. All right. There is a way that people are trying to use these devices to help them lose weight through something called hunger training, which is sort of like comes from the intermittent fasting camp of people where they're trying to fast for a certain amount of time per day. But what they'll do is they'll use their glucometer and wait till they go under their baseline before they start eating. One of the ways that blood sugar that I assumed that I was eating when I was hungry, but when I wore these glucometers, I find out that my blood sugar was not low; it was actually high. It was just that I was trying to self-soothe. So that's a way that you can use these glucometers. So I mentioned at the beginning to avoid snacks at night. And why did I say that? Because you've heard your grandmother told you, don't eat late at night, it's bad for you. Well, they've actually proven grandma right that your glucose tolerance is worse at night. In this graph, what they have shown is someone who's giving an IV of glucose, of sugar being put into their blood. Now you'll notice that during the day, despite having blood sugar literally dripped into their blood, their body can manage it. But as it gets 20 means 8 p.m., 2000 hours for the military folks. As it gets later and later and the sun goes down, your pancreas decides to take a nap. It decides to go to sleep. And then your growth hormone starts coming out and counteracting the effects of insulin. And there's various glucagon release, so that you have blood sugar throughout the night. Anyway, this graph shows that we're horrible at dealing with glucose at night, and that's everybody. So you should not give your body additional metabolic emergency and eating at night and giving it more to deal with. So the same thing happens throughout the day. In the morning, your blood sugar spike is much thinner and comes back down to baseline more quickly. Lunch is a little worse, and dinner is a little wider and higher and longer. Same meal, higher and longer spikes. Okay. Here is actual Dr. Harrington's Freestyle Libres monitor, and what I have circled here was that when I almost got in a car wreck, and there were some real stressful situations going on the highway. I had an adrenaline spike, and so stress you're doing everything right with your diet, and then oh my gosh, stress can have an effect and cause the adrenaline spikes to increase your blood sugar. If you're running from a lion, the body is going to release adrenaline, and in the end will cause blood sugar to be released. And so your own body's blood sugar. Snacking. If you do have diabetes, you need to try to get away from snacking. And this sounds kind of like common sense, but as your blood sugar goes up, you want it to come back down, and you want it to be in your baseline. You want it to come back to your baseline. And so that you can avoid time under the influence of glucose, basically. And if you snack throughout the day, if you graze throughout the day, it keeps the blood sugar up all day. And that raises your hemoglobin A1C, because that is the average. It's an average glucose. So Chef AJ has talked about this snacksidents. I had a snacksident. I love this term. I don't know where it came from, but it's hilarious to me. Yeah. You want to try to plan your meals and eat intentionally as possible. All right. So if you are monitoring your glucose, what would be a perfect glucose spike? you would see it, maybe your blood glucose go 30 to 40 points up of an excursion from your baseline, and you would see it by the 2 hour mark, you'd see it come back down. If you eat a really high glycemic meal, it might go up much higher, 40 to 50 points and come back down. So this can actually be like fruit. Fruit can raise your blood sugar spike really high, but if you don't eat it with fat, it can come right back down really quickly, and that's ideal. But if you eat the food with fat and you have a very large meal with a lot of carbohydrates, it'll stay up higher and longer. Hunger training is where you try to wait for your blood sugar to go below its baseline that you woke up with, and that's something called hunger training that people have tried. It's very tough because normally we eat based on the time, like it's breakfast, it's lunch, it's dinner. We tend to eat this way, so hunger training is a very kind of difficult thing that people have tried when they're trying to do fasting, intermittent fasting, to try to lose weight. These are the folks that know most about this glucose monitoring that I found kind of in the third parties. If you're looking to try to get somebody to help you with this, Mastering Diabetes with Cyrus Kambata and Robbie Barbaro. There's also this Optimizing Nutrition. This guy, Marty Kendall, he does talks all about this and hunger training techniques. The biggest thing if you're doing something like that for your diabetes is that, there's lots of things that can affect your blood sugar if you're looking at the monitor, and you can get a lot of anxiety. A lot of anxiety can come out from monitoring it this way. Basically, the plant-based diet can set you on the right course, and you don't really have to think too much about it. However, if you are monitoring, like, once again, you can get a lot of anxiety. But the key is that you can use it to learn, and that you continue to get better and better and better, but not to expect perfection right away. So, Amy, I want to turn this back to you because there's a little bit about the various medications. I don't know if it's okay with me going over this stuff about some of the medications for diabetes
I
real
think that
quickly.
would be a great idea. Yes, please do.
Okay. So with this slide, basically, I want you to know there's medications for diabetes because the pancreas can start to burn out. And so if you're a type 1 diabetic, no matter what you do, even if you eat 100% right and you're a vegan and you're eating whole foods and you're eating low fat, you still require insulin. The body is not making it. And so that's where we can use modern medicine to our aid. And we can just eat a healthy diet and get require very low amounts of medicine. But for type 2 diabetics, which is potentially curable with weight loss and a healthy diet, if things aren't moving very rapidly for you with weight loss and this kind of thing, you don't want to have high blood sugars. You don't want to have your tissues exposed to high blood sugars for such a long time. So you should work with your doctor because there's lots of medications available. There's metformin being the sort of the workhorse for medications, as it's cheap and it lowers your insulin resistance and it improves your insulin sensitivity. But ideally, you could do this with food. However, if it's not working out for you, their medicine, you shouldn't just go on and on and on. You shouldn't be in denial about having diabetic range blood sugars for over and over because it causes problems with your eyes and your kidneys, and it's serious. So you should see your doctor, and the doctor has multiple tools. After metformin, these are these new medications. And honestly, I'm kind of excited about them because they are kind of lower in side effects than the medicines of old. The SGLT2 inhibitors, these things that help you pee out blood sugar, excrete blood sugar in the urine, which is nice because you don't go too low. And the GLP-1 agonists are these class of medicines. They're mostly injectable medicines, unfortunately, but these help your body produce insulin and increase fullness and this kind of things. So these are the most physiologic medicines, and they can help you. They can help you a lot. You can get off these medicines as you lose weight, and your requirement, if you have type 2 diabetes, and your blood sugars get better and better, you can come off any of these medicines eventually. But don't go for years with high blood sugar, because it will cause irreversible damage over time. Older medicines, the sulfonylureas, make your body produce more insulin. Actose, this is a medicine that helps to sensitize you to blood sugar, or to insulin. And then there's insulin itself. But there's lots of treatments. You want to talk to your doctor and be treated while you're on your plant-based diet, low fat, doing all these recommendations that I have discussed above. But what's up with these GLP-1 medications? Glucagon-like peptide 1. These are medicines that you've heard about or taken the nation by storm. You've probably heard that Hollywood and the Hamptons is using all these medicines. All these overweight celebrities who are finally losing weight because they're taking these medicines. And it's really pervasive in Hollywood and the Hamptons, they say. So much so that diabetics are having trouble getting the medicine, and that's what you're hearing about. How do these work? Well, the way your body normally uses this hormone is that you eat a very bulky meal, a plant-based meal, basically, full of fiber and nutrients, and you eat it, and then the intestinal receptors experience a high amount of bulk and nutrients in the intestines, and they release a hormone. They release a hormone that basically tells you that you're full. And so it stimulates insulin. It regulates glucagon, which increases your blood sugar, so it slows that down. And it tells your brain, hey, look, you're full. It quiets the food noise. People talk about this. These are gut hormones. The trials show that when they did, the orange is semaglutide. People are taking the semaglutide injections. And then they were switched to a placebo, the gray group, and then the other group kept on the semaglutide. And so overall, the semaglutide group lost 18% of their body weight, and the people who switched off started to regain weight. So this is kind of the biggest concern. Like, oh my gosh, does this mean I have to stay on these GLP-1s for the rest of my life? And so that is kind of, to me, the biggest concern, because eventually, you have to come off and you would gain weight. There are side effects. People have a variety. You'll either have a sort of a diarrhea or a constipation. So it does affect your GI tract. Some people experience nausea and headache and this kind of thing, where the biggest thing I hear about people is that it's almost like morning sickness. They say that, and they don't really want to eat. Even things like their libido, they just feel bad. They feel kind of flu-like illness, kind of, for many folks, especially if you're going up too fast. And so it's not necessarily all rainbows and unicorns. It can be kind of, some people really react kind of poorly to it. If you've ever had pancreatitis, or you've had a problem where your peristalsis, the movement of your GI tract, is slowed down, called gastroparesis, you shouldn't take these medicines. If you've ever had a history of thyroid cancer, it has been shown in animal studies to cause thyroid cancer. And it hasn't been studied in type 1 diabetics. So this is a thing where, there's a saying, there's no miracle of science that doesn't go from a blessing to a curse. And I'm leery of any kind of medicine, but this one, there's so much positive hype about these medicines that I worry about the dark side, about coming off. And it doesn't necessarily train you on how to eat right, how to eat in a sustainable way. you're just basically fasting. You've increased your fasting states. The biggest problem that I see with these medicines is that in the end, they actually stimulate your appetite. So, what do I mean by this? The goal of the medicine is to make you feel full. Well, just like caffeine is designed to stimulate you and wake you up. But once you get used to that stimulated state, your body becomes tolerant to the medicine, and then you feel tired all the time. You feel tired all the time unless you use the medicine to stimulate you, to wake you up, just to feel normal. And I worry about this kind of concept with these GLP-1 medicines. If you're taking a medicine to decrease your appetite, decrease your appetite, that once that becomes the norm, when you would stop the medicine, you would have a higher appetite, or that you would have to take these medicines just to feel normal. So that's kind of the sort of the dark side that I worry about with these medicines. And besides, the whole food plant-based diet is causing you to release GLP-1 naturally. And that's by eating beans and healthy fat and high fiber foods, and fermentable fibers, these soluble fibers. These are things that help to release this GLP-1 naturally. So basically, I mean, I could go on and on and on about type 2 diabetes, but I want to take time to answer your questions if you have some. Basically, get a doctor who gets you. If you're vegan and you want to have a vegan doctor, you can see me, especially if I'm in your state, if I have a license. If your A1C is going up every year, little by little, you could get a glucose monitor if you want to try to gamify your glucose. I can prescribe those for you, or talk to your doctor. Type 2 diabetes is curable with weight loss and a whole food plant-based diet. Okay, once again, I'm in these states. I accept insurance, Aetna, Cigna, TRICARE, Medicare. And that is it.
Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Harrington. That was just
All right.
fabulous. We do have some questions, so I'm going to go over to the
All right.
comments now and see what we have. Okay, so Vegan Knowledge JJ said, I have a question. When you are just beginning the vegan journey and you're already insulin resistant, to include fruits, is it good to eat them in a salad with greens so that it gives extra fiber?
Well, this is a great addition to a salad if you want to add strawberries or mango or something to make your salad more exciting. I give you the green light. Green light. Do that. I mean, the glycemic index or the glycemic load from this fruit is very minimal, and you have to eat carbs. You have to have some amount of carbs. You're trying to improve your insulin sensitivity. And so by defatting your diet, so the salads, in this case, you want to avoid a high fat dressing. So non-oil dressing, those are some of the keys to try to really hone in on those non-oil, low-fat dressings.
Okay, yeah, that's very important because that can just ruin the whole salad for you. Okay, yep. And Kenzie, 1995, was when you were giving the presentation, said, that's me currently in denial about my high blood sugar. This is a good reality check to get back on track. So see that? That was good. If we were just here for you, Kenzie, that was enough.
Kenzie, I feel like I've made a difference in the world right now. If I've helped you kind of come to terms with that, it's hard. It's hard, the idea of feeling like you're diabetic. One way to look at it is kind of the specter of diabetes is behind us all. We're all pre-diabetic. We're all pre-cancerous. So there's nothing wrong with trying to actually focus on the problem, and because eventually it's going to be a problem for everybody in a way. Think about it, but monitor it. You can't control something you don't know what's going on. So monitor it and talk to your doctor. And I'm so happy for you, Kinsey. Yeah, focus on it, and you can get it under control.
He said he has type 2 and he's looking forward to hearing more. That's what he said earlier from your presentation, and he's very interested in becoming a patient of yours.
All
So,
right. All right.
yeah,
I'd be glad to help you out.
if I needed help with type 2 diabetes, I would definitely give you a call because you really have a lot of very good information and good strategies, and it seems like you'd be very supportive, and that's like you said, you need a doctor that's gonna get you, and you get people that that know that they can do something about their diabetes if they adopt a whole food plant-based lifestyle. So Carrie said, "My brother went vegan and lost 30 kilograms, drastically reduced his insulin, which caused him to be able to afford to look for work. And now he has a job." So, wow.
All right. All right. 30 kilograms, that's a lot, 60, 70 pounds. And oh my gosh, it'll change your life. It changed my life. I only lost 15 to 20 pounds. And I felt like I had a new lease on life.
Yeah, absolutely. We in my family, well, between my husband and myself, we probably lost over 130 pounds, and it does definitely make a difference in our world. We have Kenzie said that just signed up for a consultation with you. So now you do have
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
so
It's
and you'll say, "I
official.
remember you from Be Green with Amy. We met that
That's
way."
right.
That's very
It's
nice.
official.
Yeah. Okay. And Carrie said that this was really helpful even after watching so much Mastering Diabetes, there was still things in here new to me. So you are cutting
Wow.
edge.
All right. I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. Oh
that is
man.
wonderful. Yeah, and that's what we like to hear. Um, Mike said, "I tried the Dr. Greger diet, which is a version of a whole food plant-based diet, and I think I did something wrong as I felt hungry a lot. What can I eat to curb hunger?"
Okay, yeah, great question. Um, you know, I think that we all kind of start off when we're switching from a sort of normal standard American diet or whatever. It's very salty and very rich. And when you switch over initially to a diet that's plant-based, especially when you're first starting out, maybe you don't season it right, or maybe you don't make it very savory and delicious. Uh, that it can be sort of boring in comparison, and it can feel. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. But at first, you can really feel like man, I'm really I'm really suffering here, and I'm feeling hungry all the time. I call this the bust a gut phenomenon. The bust a gut phenomenon is, just putting it simply, like we're used to eating until we just feel bad. And that's how we know we ate a lot. Like, oh my God, I feel horrible after a Thanksgiving meal. People would say, oh God. And then you'd have to like sleep it off. But you're associating this like extreme fullness with a positive thing. And then when you switch to a plant-based diet, it's more light and you know, even when you bust a gut with like salad, there's something that just it does you don't feel as awful as you do if you ate to your extreme fullness with eating, high fat, high salt, high animal product meal. It's going to make you feel bad. People literally associate that bad feeling with a positive thing that they've really got a good meal. And so um, you end up getting used to it. Basically you get used to eating and feeling good, and then every now and then you'll accidentally slip up, you'll have a snacksident or something, and then you'll creep back into the old way of eating, and you'll realize, wow, that actually does feel bad, and I want to be over here. So the plant-based diet has a little bit of self-regulating capability that way, because the more you get into the plant-based world, the better you feel and the worse you feel when you're without it. So, but to answer your question more directly, fiber and beans are beans and whole grains are the cornerstone, I find, of curbing your appetite, uh, filling your diet full of these other non-starchy vegetables and fruit, for lots of different sensations and flavors and everything is really good. But having the high fiber aspect of beans or whole grains. And then you can even increase this with the psyllium husk supplements. Uh, and you can take a 1 tablespoon of psyllium husk in any liquid, hot or cold, and you can do it before meals. And that really, I mean, it really adds to your fullness. And I don't recommend supplements in general. Like, I don't want you to have to be taking supplements all the time, but it is something you could try to, and it's healthy, and it's just the psyllium.
That is a really great hack. I love that. I bet a lot of people are gonna benefit from that. And I remember that, Dr. Furman, he did a study and he found that in the beginning when we're coming off of these foods, the junk foods and the all the fats and things that are in the standard American diet, that we often go through what he terms toxic hunger, where we think we're hungry, but we're really withdrawing, as you alluded to, we're withdrawing from the standard American diet. I know that I went through that, and I was eating a lot of raisins and walnuts in between meals because I felt like I was hungry, but really I wasn't hungry. I was going through a withdrawal. Not to say that Mike isn't experiencing true hunger, but that can be something that people experience. It was something that I experienced for a while.
Yes, this is something that we all kind of go through. Yeah, we're not beating you up, Mike. We want you to know that we've all experienced that too, and yeah, we are all sort of food addicts in that way. When we switch over, it's like um, it's like a real feeling of abstinence when you're switching over, because getting away from these high these foods that really light up all your pleasure centers in your brain the drug like foods, honestly.
Yeah, but it doesn't last long. You feel normal again, and then this way of life feels normal, and you can't believe you ever ate any other way. So the Sky Warrior said, "I just had my labs done, and my fasting glucose is 88, but the A1C is 6.0, and my pre-diabetic. Thank you."
Okay, this is a great example. So this is why I showed that there's three different World Health Organization definitions of diabetes. And so in this case, you are pre-diabetic if your A1C is 5.7 to 6.5, and over 6.5 you're considered diabetic. So you would be in the pre-diabetic range based on your A1C. However, your blood sugar fasting seems low, so this is non-congruent. They're not incongruent, because a true fasting glucose of 112 or above is the pre-diabetic range. So these are inconcordant or not concordant, and so you might have a false positive on the hemoglobin A1C. So this is a potential where we discussed on the both sides, where if you're having things that cause your blood to linger around longer, such as the iron deficiency, uh, then maybe you're having sort of a false elevation of the hemoglobin A1C. But so you monitor it over time, make sure there's no other issues going on. And you might, what this has done is this has piqued your interest about your blood sugar, and that maybe you are pre-diabetic, and that probably best to kind of be focused and monitoring yourself, whether you want to get a glucose meter or whether you want to get a point of care finger prick sticker thing. So you every now and then, maybe once or twice a month, you can test your fasting to kind of validate this. Because if you do this a couple times a month and you find that you are over 112, then you are pre-diabetic. Uh, and so in that, but in that case, you could assume you are. Let's assume you are pre-diabetic. Then what should you do? You should really be trying to get down into normal weight. You should be trying to avoid eating late at night. You should be trying to avoid snacking, and you should be increasing the fiber. Maybe doing some of that sequencing where you're eating sort of big salad before. Those are some tips that can help keep that A1C going down if you were pre-diabetic.
Yeah, that would be interesting if Sky Warrior would repeat the test, but in the meantime, experiment with this lifestyle and the different tips that you gave, and then see what would happen. That would be very interesting to do. Well,
It, it,
everybody, go
it,
ahead.
It kind of feels a little scary to the idea of getting a glucometer because there's kind of, you have to prick your finger, you swab your finger, you get these lancets and you put it in this, spring device and you prick your finger and that can seem kind of scary at first. However, this is a test that you can have at your house and you don't have to rely on the doctor, and you can kind of take control of your health. You're driving the train. It's not that we rely on the doctor to save us. You save yourself, you know?
Yes. It's so nice to know that a lot of our health issues are in our control if we want to, and we just get information from, broadcasts like this, and then we can always know that it's in the lotus of our control, and we can definitely do something about it, and that's so important to know. Okay, let me just look and see. Okay. George said, I ate 18 grapes and my sugar went from 80 to 186 in minutes. Advice?
Wow. So yeah, so you probably have some impaired glucose tolerance. That clearly that is a huge jump. So yeah, if you're over say 40 or 50 excursion from your baseline, then it's concerning that you're kind of a pre-diabetic potentially. And so uh, this probably could happen if you ate crackers, or you used grapes as the analogy here, but if you had some crackers or a bagel or pasta, or you know it doesn't necessarily mean that grapes are bad. It's just that your glucose tolerance is potentially you're struggling. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on was the fact that even if you're doing everything right and you're eating low fat diet, if your pancreas is starting to give out, that you might need help. You might need help, and it sounds like that you should start with your primary and see where you're at with the hemoglobin A1C, and because sometimes even if you do all the right things, that your pancreas is not producing enough insulin.
That sounds like great advice. Thank you so much for that. Well, thank you, Dr. Harrington, for your insightful and comprehensive explanation to the path to improved health. And I mean, you gave invaluable expertise in diabetes management, some tips that even some of the go-to diabetes management people may not have expressed in some of the recent presentations. And of course, incorporating the plant-based living, that's just a really great thing that you're doing for everyone. And your guidance has inspired us all to embrace healthier choices and to strive just to have a great plant-powered lifestyle. Doing more